All right, today we're jumping into a really powerful, really dense passage from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 8, verses 9 through 18. It's all about a critical choice. When a crisis hits, where do you put your trust? In human power or in something else? Let's unpack this amazing message about what it means to trust and what we should truly fear.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. We're breaking it down into four main ideas. First, we'll look at the warning against useless alliances. Then, the call to a totally different kind of fear. After that, we'll see the two-sided consequences of that choice. And we'll wrap it up with how the prophet's own family becomes a living part of the message. We're kicking things off in verses 9 and 10 with a super stark warning. Now, at this time, the people of Judah were in the middle of this huge political mess, and they were, looking for security in all the wrong places. Isaiah calls them out on it big time. Isaiah starts verse 9 with this incredible, repeated warning. He's essentially shouting, "Go ahead, team up, make your political deals, prepare for battle." That's what gird yourselves means. But he says no matter what you do, no matter what strategy you come up with, the result is always going to be the same. You will be broken in pieces. And that image he uses, being broken in pieces, is just so vivid. This wasn't just about losing a battle. This meant total, complete destruction. Like a clay pot getting smashed into a million tiny bits that you could never, ever put back together. That's the fate, he says, of any plan that's built on human strength alone. So, why? Why were all their clever plans totally doomed to fail? Verse 10 gives us the answer. It says, you can strategize all you want, you can make your plans, but it will all come to nothing. And the reason why is packed into that one final crucial phrase, for God is with us. And that phrase, God is with us, or Emmanuel, is the absolute heart of this whole message. It's not just some nice, hopeful thought. For Isaiah, this is the ultimate guarantee. It's a declaration that God has a plan, and his plan will always, always win out over any human scheme or military power. Okay, so moving on to verses 11 through 13, the message gets really personal. This isn't just a warning to the nation anymore. God gives Isaiah a direct, forceful command that's meant to set him and his followers completely apart from everyone else who's panicking. So in verse 12, the instruction is basically twofold. First, God says, don't get caught up in the popular solution. The people are all yelling about a confederacy, probably some political alliance to protect themselves. God says, don't even say that word. But even more important is the second part. Don't fear what they fear. Don't get swept up in the mass hysteria. And this just lays out the central choice so clearly. You've got two kinds of fear on the table. The people, they were terrified of what they could see, the Assyrian army, the political threats. But Isaiah was commanded to fear something else entirely. He was supposed to fear the Lord of hosts, the one who truly holds all the power. So instead of fearing other people, the command in verse 13 is to sanctify the Lord of hosts. Now, what does that mean? It means to set him apart, to worship him, to glorify him, and to hold him in this place of ultimate awe and reverence. Let him be the one you fear, the one you dread, not some temporary king or army. All right, so you have this choice. Fear God or fear man. What happens when you actually make that choice? Well, verses 14 and 15 reveal this incredible paradox. The Lord himself becomes one of two very different things to people, all depending on their response. Verse 14 lays out the two sides of the coin. For some, God will be a sanctuary, a place of perfect safety and protection. But for everyone else in Israel and Judah, he becomes the very thing that trips them up, a stone of stumbling and a dangerous trap. It's really that stark. For the people who trust and sanctify him, God is their safe place, their sanctuary. But for everyone who rejects him and trusts in human alliances instead, he becomes the very obstacle that causes their downfall, a stumbling block, an offense, and a trap that catches them. And verse 15 makes it crystal clear that the consequences are just devastating. Stumbling over this rock isn't a small thing. It leads directly to being broken, trapped, and taken captive. I mean, think about the irony. The very fate they were trying to avoid by making all these alliances is exactly what happens to them, because they wouldn't trust God. All right, in our final section, verses 16 through 18, the focus zooms in on Isaiah's personal response. And this is so cool. We see how he and his own kids become a living, breathing part of the prophecy itself.
So in verse 16, Isaiah gets this command to bind up the testimony and seal the law. Think of it like taking a super important legal document, rolling it up, and sealing it with wax. He's supposed to preserve this prophecy, keep it safe among his followers, because its truth will be proven out in time.
And then, in verse 17, you get Isaiah's personal declaration of faith, and it's just amazing. He sees that God is hiding his face from the people because of their rebellion. It looks like God is absent. But in the face of all that, Isaiah says, "As for me, I will wait for the Lord, and I will look for him." And this all builds to the absolute climax of the passage in verse 18. Isaiah basically says, look at me, look at my kids. We aren't just a family, we are the message. He says they are living, breathing signs and wonders, a physical embodiment of God's message to the entire nation. This is just incredible when you see it all together. Their actual names tell the whole story in miniature. The first son, Maher-shalal-hash-baz, his name means destruction is imminent. That's the warning of judgment. Then you have Emmanuel, God is with us, the promise of his presence through the chaos. And finally, Shir-Jashub, which means a remnant will return, the ultimate message of hope and restoration. It's the whole prophecy, right there, in one family. And so this ancient message leaves us with a question that is just as relevant for us today as it was back then. When we face our own times of crisis, our own moments of uncertainty, what are we really afraid of? And, more importantly, where do we look for our sanctuary? Where do we place our ultimate trust?